Another edition of the Fantasy Football Podcast, the show here on Gonzalo Media, giving you all the things you need to continue to find success in your fantasy football leagues. It is We Talk Fantasy. Chet Davis is here. Kyle Ray is here. I am Gaz. If you don't know that already, here we are, week 6, headlines. We're going right into it. That's right. We're going right in. We're not even hesitating this week. Week 6 is here, but before we get there, let's talk about week 5, the things that stood out to you the most when we recap this week 5 in 2022, what we're going to remember. Chet, I will start with you. The biggest fantasy football headline, the thing that jumped out to you the most this week was what?
I think it's furthering the point we made in a previous podcast that injuries to running backs are the single most important thing in a fantasy football season. Kenneth Walker, as Kyle will love to tell you, is a fantastic prospect. It was his favorite college player for multiple years, a Heisman candidate.
Should have won it.
High second round pick. Did not go to a great situation, at least we thought, with Geno Smith running the show or potentially Drew Lock. Obviously, Geno has emerged. But I fully believe that Kenneth Walker would not have been fully fantasy relevant if Penny stays healthy. He's one of those running backs, and there's a good group of them. You can call them handcuffs, or you can call them, some of them have standalone value, but they're the only way they become super relevant is if there's an injury. And with Rashawn Penny going down for the season, people are already throwing Kenneth Walker as a league winner. Like, that is going from unplayable to league winner with one injury. There's no other position in the sport where that's the case. It's the running back position where you open the door. If you have that guy, or if he's somehow on your waiver and you get him, it completely changes the outlook of your season.
Yeah, that was nuts. Like, and for Penny to break the tibia, right? Like, just, I always wonder too, like, that's a big bone in your leg. That's, I think, the largest bone in your leg. Like, what does that do to you as a running back? Like, he's just been continued to be plagued, but my headline was the same. I mean, this was finally the week of the running back. Like, running backs popped off. I mean, Eckler, 34 points. Breece Hall, 27 points. Josh Jacobs went nuts on Monday Night Football with 28. Derrick Henry came back to life. Like, all the running backs came back and started producing. So, yeah, the vulnerability at the running back spot where everybody was panicking a little bit. Like, you had the Dalvin Cooks, and before last week, Austin Eckler's, Derrick Henry in some situations. Some panic was going on. You couldn't trust on your running backs, and the only teams that were putting up points were the teams that had the Diggs, the Jeffersons, and those in the Cups. Like, those were the only teams that were putting up points. It's been a historically low scoring season across the board. This was the first week you saw it go back and level out because it was the week of the running backs. And I'm interested to see what that means, what we see going forward, because now we're in week 6. Plenty of tapes out there on a lot of teams. You can see what they're doing well, what they're not doing well. And I expect a little bit more of an emergence of the running backs and more normalized scoring, to be 100% honest.
Ray's love of Kenneth Walker has been well documented on social media for his time as a Spartan. Chet's point he brings up about Kenneth Walker in the waiver wire. A little spoiler alert for later in the podcast. We basically pushed this week's waiver wire off because it is such a slam dunk, no doubt. It's Kenneth Walker and nobody else. That's what the waiver wire. More. Go ahead. Okay.
Benjamin.
Yes. I actually picked him up in the league.
Because right now he's one of those deceiving guys where this is where you have to be locked into fantasy, and hopefully you listen to us and you get the intel. His projection's low right now because Connor is still expected to play. If Connor gets ruled out, he left that game in the second half and did not finish. If Connor's out, Benjamin's going to double his projections. So that's a guy, he doesn't look super appealing on your waiver wire, but he's a guy that even if Connor does go, Benjamin's a guy, if you have room for, I think he's very much worth an ad.
Super great point there. Loved it, because the Benjamin play is almost the plan when you hit the waiver wire, or if you haven't made a move yet. Like, Walker's the go-to. Get him if you got him. If Benjamin's there, he's the really good second option. But if you miss on both of those, Walker is trade talk. Like, if you are that desperate for a running back, if you need somebody, we are at the point of the season, especially whoever claimed them. It could be the first place team. It could be a borderline playoff team. This is almost like draft day in the real NFL. You start opening up the phones and start wondering, like, okay, what do I need to do to get Kenneth Walker? Because Look, as good as Rashawn Penny's been over that 20-game span dating back to 2021, I told you guys in the preseason how much I loved him. One of the most underrated running backs, truly, of the last 10 years in fantasy. It sucks, man. Yeah. Because he probably had a new contract coming, maybe not in Seattle. He was going to get paid. He had been a first-round bust, arguably, out of San Diego State. It didn't work out. My headline's Taysom Hill. Like, Taysom Hill, what he did with 4 touchdowns, where he ranks in PPR leagues. I love this stat, that he's the 3rd best tight end because he's got that double eligibility. He's got 1 target the whole year. He's the 3rd best tight end. He ranks as the 22nd best running back and the 25th best quarterback. Taysom Hill used to be the guy for the non-season fantasy football players, the weekly, true weekly DraftKings, all that stuff. People would pick up Taysom Hill hoping, like, hey, if he gets in the end zone, I might make some money on this. People in double quarterback leagues would pick up Taysom Hill thinking, all right, I got 2 guys on a bye. Let's just try to get some points. He has truly become a player that should be in your lineup every single week. Now, the irony of that is that in our league, in the Dynasty League, there he sat with 34 points on my bench after I played him the week before in London and then sat on the next week. Luckily, I still got the win, but I'm not proud he sat on the bench. That will never happen again. I will ride Taysom Hill, one of my favorite players in fantasy, to the end. But to have 4 touchdowns, 4 as a tight end quarterback, weird mix post Sean Payton, is remarkable what he did.
Can we all agree that the tight end designation needs to be changed? Like you said, he has 1 target. He does not line up at tight end. Like, I think it's going to be a dangerous point where I know, as Gaz is smiling right now, he's going to be Gaz's starting tight end in every league that he has him, and as he should be, because that's a cheat code with a position that's so weak. To get a guy that's having designed quarterback runs and passing the football. I saw him. Didn't he throw this past weekend?
Yeah. He had a passing touchdown.
How many tight ends throw the football? How many tight ends line up at quarterback? Come on. It's getting to a point where, and it's happened, for his recent career, where it's the argument of what position does he actually play? I think, and I know that, whether you're on ESPN or Yahoo, I'm pretty sure they do have an algorithm, right? Where it's like how many times they line up at a certain place. I don't think I've seen him line up at tight end, so I don't understand. Like, he's not a Saints tight end. There's like the Saints tight ends are Troutman and Johnson. You know what I mean? Like, he's not a tight end. It's crazy.
What number is Taysom Hill? Oh, 7. So I think the main reason why they have him listed as tight end is because the Saints official roster has him listed as a tight end, which is the dumbest thing on the planet. You're not a tight end. Like, and that's almost where I think it's worth a conversation when you look at leagues like this. Like, that legit is a cheat code. Like, that's like literally you went back to PlayStation or Age of Empires 2 and put, how do I turn this thing on? All of a sudden you get a Corvette that shoots missiles. Throwback there to the 90s. But it's just, it doesn't make any sense. It's very similar to the Cordero Patterson argument a couple years ago when he was listed as a wide receiver and a running back. Like, you could put him wherever the hell you wanted, and he was getting a ton more touches than catches. So, I think that needs to be fixed 100%. I'm with you on that. I'm with you both on that one.
And to go even further, I'm going to give a shout out to Kyle's cousin, Jeff Fazio, who sent me this tweet. And I think I may have even shared it with you beforehand. But we mentioned Taysom Hill is currently tight end 3. Only Kelsey and Andrews are ranked higher. Geno Smith is QB 6.
Woo!
Ahead of Burrow, Herbert, Cousins, and way ahead of Brady, Wilson, and Rodgers. How about Jacoby Myers as wide receiver 11 in average points per game and half point, ahead of Debo, A.J. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, and Jamar Chase. And
incredible.
This is not week 1 or week 2. We're a full month and a half into the season, and this is what I always hate being at the mercy of recency bias, but this is one of the weirder fantasy seasons I can remember, with the guys that we had no faith in, no hope in, and are consistently performing. And some of the offenses I didn't want to touch, like Kyle loves to say, with a 10-foot pole, are some of the best offenses to be invested in right now. It's crazy.
We're probably about 1 or 2 weeks away from doing our half awards, the mid-season awards. But if a little early leap of the most breakout fantasy player so far, Myers and Geno are going to be battling for the next 2 weeks when we do our mid-season award show, if we do that segment, because those two have been phenomenal. One other thing to add about Taysom Hill, just one more time, as the internet likes to say, for the people in the back. Tim Tebow, this could have been you, man. This is the end scene in Space Jam where Bill Murray turns to Larry Bird and says, that could have been me out there, Larry. Tebow, if you didn't have the ego, man, this could have been you. With Taysom Hill and the tight end and everything else. So let's talk about the WTF moment of the week, the thing that caught you the most off guard, the thing that blows your mind, the rant that you want to unleash. But before we do that, let's tell you about our friends over at Mohawk Honda. Scott Moynihan's back, 30-plus years of service in the automobile industry. He's looking to help you find a new ride. However you do it, wherever you're listening here across upstate New York, we hope that you make the drive to Glenville, New York, and grab yourself a new vehicle. With the fall, having that new weather on the way, although here in the capital region, man, every single week we talk about this. The weather's awesome. I thought the shorts were put away. They're sneaking back in and out.
Let's go.
That's right, dude. If you got the fall tailgate on the way, the road trip for the big football game, now with more and more sports happening, we want to make sure you're safe with your new ride. Take advantage. There's only a few more times we're probably going to mention the supply chain being so strange. 2023s are on the way. Get a great price on a 2022. Check out all the great things you can see on their social media platforms and more. And don't forget, Godzilla Media will be broadcasting live from Mohawk Honda on October 27th. Mohawk Honda, where we always go out of their way to please you. Look, I put the we in there too. I was going to be on set. I just say them. We. I just did the full we right there. All right. I'm going to open here with the WTF moment of the week because mine is a little dated. And I already ran it to you two in mass capital letter text and everything else about my rant. What happened with Latavius Murray? Like the Thursday night, my God, dude. The Thursday night football game was atrocious. To think that Amazon on average paid $78 million for us as football fans to watch Colts, Broncos, and to Chet's credit, in that same mass text, Ray and I looked at all these stats. We saw the number was 42.5. We thought, okay, they're begging everybody to take that under. Let's ride. Like Russell Wilson for an over on a Thursday night. Fart noise in the microphone. What a truly that in Oklahoma football in the same weekend, or maybe, hopefully, I pray, are my two worst bets of the entire season. But anyways, so Latavius Murray traveled to London on the Saints roster, scored in the game, not injured, gets to Denver. They need a running back. All he's got to do is fall forward. Melvin Gordon had -2 the week before. For the second consecutive week, in all my years of playing fantasy, 17, 18 years, a long-ass time of doing this, I have never in back-to-back weeks had double donuts because I didn't update a roster. Even before the days of the notifications. I get 1,000 notifications a day. What a terrible idea to turn this on. But Latavius Murray was a healthy scratch? I cannot believe it. I'm stunned that Latavius Murray was a healthy scratch the week before when he played and scored. That's my WTF moment of the week. I left him in the lineup. I take the punishment, whatever it should be. I cannot believe he had a healthy scratch on Thursday.
I think the worst part is you won. I
won.
I cannot believe you won that matchup. You were projected to lose by, I think, 20 points at one point. When did you realize, guys? When did you realize you made a boo-boo?
Late. Like 10, 15. Late.
Oh, man.
So I was getting the updates on my phone. I forgot what was going on that day. I think we had a live show somewhere. Something was going on. And I was just like, okay, like Latavius Murray's not doing well here. Like I'm getting nothing on Latavius Murray. And then all of a sudden I look down and saw the NA. I'm like, what do you mean NA? What do you mean he's not playing? What do you mean he's not in the lineup? I'm embarrassed.
And just to make it clear for people, you have Melvin Gordon.
Yeah.
You played Latavius over Melvin. So I just want to make sure that's very clear for the audience.
Yeah. I'll kind of also build off to Gaz's point because a lot of it is similar. Because how do we get better notifications about people being out? And the main thing is T. Higgins. That T. Higgins thing screwed a lot of people because there was nothing. Absolutely nothing. And like that's where I think we talked about in the COVID year. Like there's some of those like, well, he was never ruled out, I think, until like literally kickoff. And how does fantasy players like manage that? So
he wasn't ruled out.
Well,
he played like 16% of snaps, but it was reported mid-game that the ankle injury. I'm not sure if he came in with an ankle injury or if he just re-injured it or it was fresh. He did play
in with an injury. He came in with an ankle.
But obviously, did not get a single catch.
Yeah. So
played like less than 10 snaps.
Yeah. So like those are the brutal things. So I actually didn't even know that he played because I was working during the game and but that one drives me up the wall. And there's obviously some of the others. I think we got in a big rant on it too. But my other one, Detroit. Welcome back to earth? ? Like number one offense. I think everybody was 30 plus points per game, just running the ball down people's throats. Amon-Ra St. Brown can't be stopped. Then TJ Hawkinson, like you're looking at like, holy cow, this is scary. And then you get decimated by the Patriots. Like, I know that defense isn't like a slouch defense, like Detroit's level defense, but it's not good. You got Judon, McCourty. Yikes.
One of them, I think, right?
Yeah, and he's the older one, if I'm not mistaken. Not even the younger brother. Is it the younger brother?
Aren't they twins?
That counts if it's a few minutes older. That counts. He's not wrong.
Didn't even know they were twins, but I knew they were brothers.
No, they're identical twins.
Oh, well, that's interesting.
But, you're not wrong, Ray. You're not wrong if he was born first.
Someone had to come first. Someone came first.
But what else is there? And then you don't stand a chance. Jared Goff, welcome back to earth. Every part of that offense, welcome back to earth. And I think the biggest reason that's my WTF moment is because that offense lost people a ton of fantasy games this week, including my third straight 15-team parlay that I missed because of that damn game. And I had Detroit plus 15.5. You tell me you could score 2 touchdowns. Oh. But anyways, welcome back to reality. Welcome back to reality, Detroit Lions. I still love you, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Outside of that, Jared Goff, I figure it out, please.
Can we learn something from, or is there something to learn from Amon-Ra St. Brown? Is that hey, if a guy has missed the previous week with an injury, questionable all week, no matter what the name is, maybe look for a better option. Some leagues you don't have a better option. Like I'm not benching Amon-Ra St. Brown for, let's say,
Brandon Ayuk.
That one's borderline, but yeah, Michael Gallup, Noah Brown. Someone who's like a number 2. I'm not going that crazy. However, in smaller leagues or leagues that you're wide receiver heavy, I'd rather be late. I was victim of it this past week. I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown was fantastic the first 4 games of the season, or 3 games, whatever it was, before he missed a week with an ankle injury, and he was on a snap count. Like he did not play that full game against the Patriots, and so I think he had 4 catches for 18 yards. You can get that from just about anybody on a different offense. So, what do you guys think? Is that something where some guys are bulletproof when it comes to the injury designation, or should you always be looking for a better option?
What I would say for that is be careful of the coach they're facing, because this is classic Belichick. Like of any sport, football, baseball, hockey, whatever. Bill Belichick, you can make a strong case that he does this better than any coach maybe in the history of professional and college sports in North America. Finds your best weapon and takes it out of the game.
Yep.
So the scout report in the Lion game was St. Brown's hurt, DeAndre Swift's hurt, Jared Goff, you could argue, isn't a better offensive threat than TJ Hawkinson, who had a monster game the week before. Okay, Goff can't check down to Hawkinson. Let's take him out of the game. And statistically and fantasy-wise, he was a non-factor. Let's make the Lions beat us without having Hawkinson. They couldn't do it. So that's my answer to your question. Also, a scout report to Ray's answer of the WTF moment. Be careful of the coaches they face. If you've got veteran, Hall of Fame, great coaches, be careful when an injured guy is in your lineup with that matchup.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
I tend to agree. The only thing I think you got to be careful is how do you sit a top 5 wide receiver at that point? You know what I mean? Outside, if he played that week before TJ Hawkins went off, Amon-Ra St. Brown's probably going to go off again for 20 plus points and keep him in that top 5 wide receiver conversation. I don't think you can necessarily sit a top 5 wide receiver for somebody else. Like the risk sometimes is worth the reward. And in that situation,
you don't want to be the idiot with a guy scoring 20 points on your bench
because you were afraid of a questionable or he was limited in practice all week. Yeah.
But it has bit us in the butt a lot this year. You mentioned T. Higgins, you mentioned Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jalen Waddle with the hip injury on Thursday night. Like there have been those instances where it's like it kills you to take out one of your best fantasy players, but it hurts even more when he puts up a super subpar performance.
Especially in the age that we are right now, where if you flick your finger on my desk, ow, my finger hurts, I'm on the injury report from a coach.
Yeah, right. It's so hard to get a real read what these guys are doing. My WTF moment of the week is a stat that I believe I already shared with you guys. I definitely shared it on social media. I think ESPN Stats is the one that shared it. Baker Mayfield with a 16.8 QBR is the second worst QBR start in the first 5 games of a season since the tracking of that stat began in 2006. So bad that it's sandwiched in between Jamarcus Russell and Deshaun Kaiser for the worst statistical start to a season ever in the recording of this stat. So we're looking at 16 years. Holy shit. Baker sucks. And honestly, my biggest takeaway, sometimes we like to, crap on the guy who's playing terrible. I spin it and I look more at Kevin Stefanski.
Yup.
Bravo for keeping that together, making Baker look like a competent quarterback, a playoff team. And it's not only so that Baker has now left for browner grass, but how about Jacoby Brissette ranking, I believe, I have to double check my tweet. I think he's QB6 in QBR this year. A guy who no one thought deserved another chance to be a starting quarterback after his run in Indianapolis. And he's been awesome. And so, I look at Kevin Stefanski and I go, that guy absolutely needs to be in the conversation for top NFL coach. I think you're looking at Sean McDermott, Kevin Stefanski, Sean McVay, and of course, Bill. And I think those are those guys you can make an argument for any one of them to be right now the top guy you would want running your franchise. And to take it a step further, anybody who's invested, I'm not going to question your morals, but if you're invested for the return of Deshaun Watson, that offense could be scary. They might be really good.
I'm also calling it right now. Once Darnold's healthy, complete turnaround for that team. I actually think
that's the thing. Dude, it's not a bad offense.
No.
You've got an elite running back. You've got a wide receiver in his prime who has been successful with what should have been inferior quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. What's your excuse? Matt Rule? Yeah, he's done. He's out of there. You got him fired. Congratulations.
It does baffle me that they fired the DC and not the OC for what everything's been going on there. That one surprised me a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely blowing it up over there. And we can talk about any of these points, but I also think it's funny that I think every single beat writer of every NFL team has said, yep, our team has called out in regards to CMC and or DJ Moore, as they should. You gotta kick the tires on those guys because I'm sure they want a fresh start, and they could absolutely make any team in the NFL better.
And to add a little bit more to that, Freddie Kitchens pre-Stefanski makes Stefanski even look more impressive. And the thing with Baker, man, everything was lining up for him to be good in Carolina.
Yep.
Back to our preseason talk. And I know I was the one who had this one. Pissed off Baker. Whether you're a fan of Baker or not, it's the best Baker. It always has been. Awful. And I know the easy thing is to say, Matt Rule's out of there, they can get better. Carolina is the furthest away from where they need to be. Them, Washington, Houston, but going into the season, we had an idea Houston was going to struggle. Carolina was in the talks to being a playoff team. With the down south and what they could have done with McCaffrey healthy. I got something about DJ Moore later on coming up. I want to save that DJ Moore question for later. But
real quick, Colt takes exposed for me. I remember the first week I said Baker's going to throw up 30 points. Hey, groundbreaking. The dude barely crossed 40 so far this season for fantasy points. In total. Can you guys just tweet that out as Cold Takes Exposed?
Because I want someone to expose me.
Yeah, I deserve it.
By the way, there's some people who have some Albany connections on Cold Takes Exposed. I'll tell you guys about that after the show. Trade vetoes. You see it on our visual side here. For our audio side, we'll tell you why we want to mention trade and vetoes and league rules. But first, Lily and David Fine Jewelers is celebrating their 10th anniversary. Shout out to Alyssa, David, and the entire crew over at Lily and David Fine Jewelers, celebrating this great achievement. The family-owned and operated businesses have been helping people in the capital region for 10 years. And now you can stop in Route 50, the shops of Wilton, and benefit from up to 60% off selected jewelry. Guys, over 600 pieces of jewelry on sale this month. So don't wait till November. Don't wait till December when you're scrambling for the holiday gift and more for her. Take advantage of the fantastic deals going on right now at Lily and David Fine Jewelers, where you can find exactly what you're looking for. All of us here, married, happy, wonderful things in our lives. We know how important it is to continue to keep your wives happy. Stop in at Lily and David Fine Jewelers. Take care of her this holiday season if you're celebrating that fall wedding, whatever it might be. Lily and David Fine Jewelers wants to help you. Stop in. We talk fantasy. There's the wedding band. All great things. Lily and David Fine Jewelers. All right, Chet, I'm going to kind of swing it to your way here because I kind of want to get your unbiased. You can trash one of us if you want. You can say it's an even trade, however you want to feel this, because Ray and I, we didn't steal sports with the Zena T, by the way. I know they did a fantasy trade last week between each other. We just had a very good offer. I offered him Michael Thomas and Dawson Knox. He, in return, gave me Zeke Elliott and Dallas Goedert. Chet, your reaction to the trade, you know the rosters. How do you feel? And what happened that you tried trolling us with moments after this trade?
Well, first, my question is, did Kyle instigate the trade?
Yes.
That's what I figured, because he kicked, he checked in with me as somebody with an investment in Kyle Pitts. I am in need of a consistent tight end, and Kyle's got two pretty good ones in Higbee and Goddard. So when I saw the trade pop up, I was like, okay, Kyle found a landing spot. It was interesting. I didn't think one side, came out much better than the other. I did have some people texting me otherwise, thinking that Gaz came out better, but I could see it going either way. I don't have full confidence that Zeke can turn it around. I don't have full confidence that Michael Thomas can stay on the field. So either one could happen. I think you both addressed a need. Kyle's wanting some little more consistency at wide receiver, and he's now got some depth at running back. So Zeke wouldn't be in his lineup aside from bye weeks. So it makes sense when you look at the rosters of why the involved parties did it. And then, so the trade was accepted, I believe, Monday night.
Yeah.
I think it was like before the week was even over. We all get notified that the trade happened. And then waiver wires hit this morning. And I think both you guys were under the impression that the trade would have gone through. And you were a little confused when those guys weren't on your rosters. Like, why do I still have the bum Zeke Elliott on my team? And so when there was a group text of, why is this? I did clown quickly saying I had vetoed it as the commissioner of the Dynasty League and said, it was a trash trade and I vetoed. And there was a moment, I don't know who fell for it first. I think maybe Kyle was like, what?
I was very much like, I don't think he would, because he would have said something.
Right. I will fully confess, Chet, there was a good 10 minutes there where I was pissed.
You were like, what, man?
It's so pissed that I actually have another group chat with my league from back home with my buddies. And I wrote, guys, what's wrong with this trade? Did I miss something? I just got vetoed in another. So, yeah, they're like, no, we don't see anything wrong with it. No, and you might want to check with your commissioner. I think he might have. I was like, no way he's vetoing this. What did I? And I, of course, for the content mind of mine, I'm like, I don't want to follow up because I know it's going to be great on the podcast. And then you were just messing with me.
I was just messing with you guys. But we did figure out pretty quickly after what had gone wrong. I'm not sure if anybody else has ever experienced this before, but most leagues have roster limits for what types of players you can have on your team. You can fill your bench. I think the biggest one is to deter people from stealing all the quarterbacks. Like you don't want one guy rostering 8 quarterbacks and then no one else on a bye week can pick up a quarterback. But there's roster limits for every position. And so I think for our league, it's 8 running backs, 8 wide receivers. And I think it's the first time this has happened, that Kyle's team is wide receiver heavy right now because he's trying to find that consistency at the position. And it's a league that has 3 starting wide receivers in addition to a flex. So it makes sense. But because it would have put Kyle over the threshold, the trade automatically didn't go through. I wish there had been some sort of notification because I didn't get one.
Right.
I'm not sure if you guys got one in your notifications of like it failed. Because that's happened to me before on a waiver wire claim, or if I tried to add someone after a waiver and might pop up with like either you have somebody in your IR spot or you already have too many of this position. So you guys figured it out, and it forced Kyle to have to drop one of his wide receivers.
And the crazy part that baffled me was we were able to do everything just fine. I wasn't required to drop a receiver because one of my wide receivers I moved into the IR spot. I moved him out yesterday.
Rashad Bateman.
Yep. And all of a sudden now I'm over the limit and it automatically just canceled the trade. Like, nope, you can't do this. You're wrong. Instead of like forcing me like you would with an IR spot. Like, hey, you need to drop somebody before you can make a roster move.
I would say from a further away perspective, like almost looking at yourself in the mirror, evaluating this trade for both of us. For me, it was the ship is going down. Like you got to get a hole in there quick because Antonio Gibson's losing carries. Cordero Patterson's hurt. Melvin Gordon. You're running out of options here, guys. You got to scramble and make something happen with a roster that's already not very good. And I'm very lucky, I'll fully admit, because the points against, I'm the league leader. So the least amount of points have been scored against me. And points scored, I'm like bottom tier. So this 3-2 record is nice, but I need some breaks to start happening. From Kyle's sense, he's the best team in the league. He's 5-0. And looking at that roster, there's a lot more trade potential now stacked on that team. Like, I don't think this is the last trade he's going to make because there's a lot of good moving pieces, whether it be 2023 picks, if your league allows that, whether it's just filling in another need. His team is set up really well for a good stretch run. As for me, I would say it's either this hits or a rebuild starts for my team. I think I'm fully aware that if Zeke bombs, we're hitting the reset for 2023.
Hey,
right.
Chat, I did climb from least points scored into seventh least. So I'm seventh in points scored now.
You did have I think you were the league leader in points this past week.
I think you got me, didn't you? I had 139.
No, I think I was off by like six or 7 points, I believe. But yes, finally the undefeated team shows his power. So that was kind of cool to see. I thought it was a good trade. I wish there was more trading in this league. I feel like a lot of people. I feel like I'm usually the one behind most of the trades, but it is nice to see other people because it is a league, guys, where you can trade future picks. It's more of a wink handshake, like you obviously announce it to the league because it's not a keeper format, even though we do keepers. But yeah, you could say like, hey, I'll give you my 3rd round pick for your player. And you just have to, when the new season begins, make that trade happen with your picks.
I'm glad you added that context because there's 2 things that's really interesting for other people who have leagues like this. That future 2023 pick, this trade deadline in this league in particular, I know we've mentioned this on past episodes, but it's extended. So even though it's only week 6, we could see trades into November and December.
The only trade limit we have in this league, which I think makes it really fun, is active playoff teams cannot trade.
Good. That's
so, if you have a team that, makes a surprise semifinal run and then they go, I'm going to give away my 1st, 2nd, and 3rd so I can get Barkley, Eckler, and Jefferson. Yeah, no, we're not going to allow the super teams to form at that point.
We had a different discussion about this last summer where the controversial Godzilla Media Darren Waller trade, but Godzilla Media League, it's not keeper and it's not future picks. We didn't address this as a commissioner of a league that we are all playing in. Is there ever a time vetoed trades should have happened involving picks or future? What is your take? And maybe the take in the league, we're about to find out. Other members of the league are about to find out the veto policy.
So I actually had a legit reason I asked for a veto trade to happen. So I was at work and I was just getting blown up to try to get somebody. And I had acquired this was back when Julio Jones was Julio Jones. And somebody asked me to trade it. It was a reasonable trade offer. I think it was wide receiver for wide receiver. I was getting Julio and he was getting like a wide receiver and a tight end. It was a little bit of like hey, I'm winning, but he needs a tight end sort of thing. Julio Jones was just placed on injured reserve. So it was an extreme scumbag move. I was working, didn't really have time to check. I was like, oh, hell yeah, I'll do that. Accepted it. And all of a sudden, later in the night, I get blown up like, why did you accept this trade? Julio went to IR. So I literally sent a message to the commissioner like, yo, can you veto this? Like, I was at work. I didn't actually have time to check it. I wanted to take advantage of it. So we didn't go and find another trade partner. So I think that's one of the main reasons. Also, again, those backdoor deals. I can go, yo, chat, slide me over Deebo Samuel, and I'll go buy a round of beers for you tonight, and we'll be good to go.
Right. Yeah, that's why I'm anti a commissioner having dictatorship power, because that, if it's a trade that doesn't help him or her, they could, find the need to veto it. So I don't think that's fair. But I think as a democracy, I think it does make sense. Because there are times when people can either take advantage. We're all adults. You should all understand your team. You paid your fees. You're a manager. You should be able to do your own homework. So I think the taking advantage of is, if you're getting taken advantage of, maybe you shouldn't be playing fantasy football, that thing. However, what Kyle's saying of kind of collusion on like, hey, I'll help you win a championship. You split your winnings with me. Yeah. Something like that. So if it's a trade that doesn't look good on paper, doesn't help you build a future team, like there's no benefit to one of the teams, I think absolutely the league should have a say on, hey, this seems a little fishy, and like make it more fair, give up something more to make it make sense. So yeah, I think it is something good to have because it keeps people honest. There's like Kyle said, there's some scumbags out there that want to take advantage of loopholes.
Yeah, and to last year's point, some people might remember this. I know some people who work with me remember this rule. It's called the Mike James rule, where Mike James just halfway through the season's like, I can't really follow my team anymore. I'm just going to give you my player. No! How lazy can you be that just like you're not having enough effort to just hit your thumb to move a guy from? So yeah,
I have one quick funny story before we wrap up this episode. So as you guys know, I like to experiment with some public leagues and try different formats, et cetera, et cetera. So this was yesterday. I was walking the dog, and I get a notification that someone has offered me a trade. Travis Kelce for Romeo Doubs. I have Romeo. I'm like, I could not have hit accept. I actually didn't hit accept fast enough because I was like, do I have Kelce? I'm like, is someone trying to fleece me right now? I was like, no, I'm getting Kelce. So I accepted it, and then I was like, dude, let me see if I can take advantage of this guy. Let's see who else he has on his roster. He dropped everyone. And so the reason being, Kelce must have a do not drop tag. Like the league won't allow him to drop Kelce. So he's like, I'm going to trade him for some reason to me. Again, this is a public league where I don't know anybody. But he dropped Barkley, Eckler, Godwin, McLaurin, Brady. Dude, a full fire sale. Mind you, this guy was 3-2. Only ahead of him was me. It was a really good team. I was like, what happened? And I can't message them. I can't figure out why. But now I literally have 8 waiver wire ads because they dropped, and it's a 48-hour waiver window when you drop someone. So they don't hit till tomorrow morning. Dude, I want all of them. I'm like, give me your, and it's not going to be fair to everybody else. I wish I could get inside that guy's head and figure out what happened. Go ahead.
Did he pick up an entire new roster?
Let me double check. That's a good question.
Because is he just quitting? Is that the other thing? Is he just saying, fuck this, I'm done?
I don't understand why. Like the guys I just named for you, he was doing very well. Like that is a successful team. And he just blew it up. So let's see. League standings. Here you go. Team McCoy. Like second place, 3-2. Second place, man.
No money involved. Just didn't want to play anymore. Just got so frustrated.
Just Romeo sitting right there.
So it's Kelce.
Dude.
Oh, because the trades have gone through.
Yeah, just wait for the trade. And it was all just because I clicked on recent activity. Then it was just like McCoy drop. I'm like, what? Here you go.
You're about to be a public league champion if people didn't notice that.
So lame.
Dropped them all.
Gross.
Right? And I'm like, dude, you just ruined the league, man. Unless, hopefully I get all of the guys, but damn.
Don't be that person in any league. Don't be that person.
And it's never good. Don't ever do it. But if you're defeated and you give up, okay, you're a sore loser. That guy could have won. The guys I just named are not only healthy, they're the best guys going. Barkley and Eckler, that's the same debate we just had last week as who should be, if we redrafted today, who would be the first running back taken? Those are your 2 running backs. You're set, man. You have Kelce at tight end. What?
Dude.
And then Godwin back healthy as the wide receiver, 1A, 1B with Mike Evans.
Boo this man. Boo that man, Mr. McCoy. Boo that man. All right, next time we talk, we're going to talk some week 6 breakout players. We'll do a little mirages and more. we could be talking hours before kickoff of Syracuse NC State. We'll see how the schedule works out for us. You might hear us on tape delay. Who knows? Go ahead, Chad.
One last piece of advice.
Sure.
Don't start anyone on Thursday.
Oh, God. Please
Worst
don't.
matchup ever.
I like that. That felt a little Levac and Gaz right there, ending the show on advice. I like that. All right. I just ruined it because I had to talk at the end. Goodbye. I'll catch you guys later.